Today I want to tell you about a young woman who experienced two completely different kinds of love. The first relationship left her feeling invisible, constantly trying to earn affection that would never come. She changed herself, bent over backwards, did everything she thought would make him love her. But it was never enough. She felt empty, worthless, like she was fighting a battle she could never win. Then she met someone else, someone who loved her laugh, her quirks, her imperfections. He didn't ask her to change. He didn't make her feel small. With him, she discovered what it actually feels like to be loved for who you truly are. So here's the question that will change everything. Can you tell the difference? And more importantly, which relationship are you in right now? Let me paint you a picture of emotional exhaustion. She wakes up every morning wondering if today will be the day he finally sees her worth. She checks her phone obsessively, analyzing every text message for hidden meaning. When he takes hours to reply, she spirals into self-doubt. When he does respond with just one word, she convinces herself it's progress. She starts changing everything about herself. Her clothes, her interests, even her dreams begin to revolve around what she thinks will make him happy. She cancels plans with friends because maybe tonight he'll want to see her. She learns to love his favorite movies, his music, his hobbies, slowly erasing pieces of herself in the process. But here's the cruel reality. The more she gives, the less he seems to notice. Her efforts become invisible. Her love becomes a burden he tolerates rather than a gift he treasures. She finds herself constantly walking on eggshells, afraid that one wrong move will push him further away. The silence between his words grows louder than any rejection ever could. She starts questioning everything. Am I too much? Am I not enough? What's wrong with me? The woman who once knew her worth now can't remember what it felt like to feel valuable. This isn't love. This is slow suffocation of the soul. And yet she stays, hoping that tomorrow he might finally love her back. But the real tragedy isn't just the lack of love returned. It's what happens to her sense of self when she starts believing his silence is the truth about who she is. She begins to see herself through his indifferent eyes. Every unreturned call becomes evidence that she's annoying. Every short response confirms she's not interesting enough. Every time he chooses anything else over her, she whispers to herself, I'm not worth choosing. The cruelest part? She starts agreeing with his neglect. She apologizes for existing too loudly in his world. She makes herself smaller, quieter, less demanding, thinking that maybe if she needs nothing, he might finally want something from her. Her friends try to tell her she deserves better, but their words bounce off the walls she's built around her broken heart. She can't hear their love because his indifference screams louder. She starts avoiding mirrors because she can't stand seeing someone so desperate for crumbs of affection. Her laughter becomes forced. Her smile, a performance. Even her tears feel like too much emotion for someone who clearly doesn't deserve to be mourned. This is the most insidious part of loving someone who doesn't love you back. You don't just lose them, you lose yourself. You become a ghost, haunting your own life, invisible even to yourself. And the saddest part? She's convinced this is what she deserves. And then, when she had almost forgotten what it felt like to be seen, he appeared. Not with grand gestures or promises, but with something she had never experienced before. Genuine curiosity about who she really was. He asked about her childhood dreams, not because he wanted to change them, but because he wanted to understand the woman they had shaped. When she laughed too loudly at something silly, he didn't cringe. He smiled, because her joy was contagious to him. When she cried over a movie, he didn't tell her she was being dramatic. He handed her tissues and asked what touched her heart so deeply. The most shocking part? He loved her morning voice, her messy hair, the way she danced alone in the kitchen when she thought no one was watching. He saw her quirks not as flaws to fix, but as colors that made her beautiful. For the first time in years, she stopped apologizing for taking up space. She stopped editing her thoughts before speaking. She stopped shrinking herself to fit into spaces that were never meant for her anyway. This man didn't love the version of herself she had spent years perfecting. He loved the authentic woman she had buried beneath layers of rejection. With him, she remembered what it felt like to breathe fully. She rediscovered her own laughter, and slowly, carefully, she began to remember who she was before someone else's indifference convinced her she was nobody. What she discovered next changed everything she thought she knew about herself. When you're loved for who you truly are, something magical happens. You stop fighting yourself. The energy she once spent trying to be someone else was now free to be channeled into becoming the best version of who she already was. She started pursuing dreams she had abandoned, not because he told her to, but because his love gave her the courage to believe in herself again. Her creativity, which had been buried under years of self-doubt, began to bloom. She painted again. She wrote poetry. She sang in the shower without caring if anyone heard. The woman who once walked into rooms apologizing for her presence now entered with quiet confidence. She spoke up in meetings. She set boundaries with toxic people. She said no without explaining herself to death. But here's what surprised her most. Loving herself became easier when she saw herself through his eyes. He showed her that her sensitivity wasn't weakness, it was her superpower. Her stubbornness wasn't a flaw, it was her determination. Her loud laugh wasn't embarrassing, it was the sound of pure joy. This is what happens when love doesn't demand you shrink. You expand. You grow. You become not just the person you were meant to be, but the person you forgot you already were. She wasn't becoming someone new, she was remembering someone she had lost. And here's where the real magic happened. She realized that for the first time in her adult life, she wasn't afraid. Not afraid of being too much. Not afraid of being not enough. Not afraid of taking up space in this world. The fear that had whispered in her ear for years, "What if they leave? What if you're not lovable?" finally went silent. Because now she knew something deeper than fear. She knew her own worth, not because someone told her she had it, but because someone loved her so completely that she couldn't deny it anymore. She started making decisions from a place of self-respect rather than desperation. She chose friendships that celebrated her, not ones that merely tolerated her. She pursued opportunities that excited her soul, not ones that just looked good on paper. The most beautiful part? She became fearless in her authenticity. She spoke her truth, even when her voice shook. She set boundaries, even when people called her selfish. She chose love, even when it meant risking heartbreak again. This is what happens when you're loved unconditionally. You learn to love yourself the same way. You stop betraying yourself for the comfort of others. You stop shrinking your dreams to fit other people's limitations. You realize that the right person doesn't complete you, they inspire you to complete yourself. She was finally free to be all of who she was meant to be. Sitting in her favorite coffee shop months later, she looked back at the woman she used to be and felt something she never expected. Compassion. Not pity, not shame, but deep, tender compassion for the girl who had been so hungry for love that she forgot to feed her own soul. She understood now what she couldn't see then. She had been looking for someone to save her from herself, when what she really needed was someone who would love her back to herself. The difference was everything. That first relationship wasn't love, it was an addiction to the idea of being chosen. But this was different. This was coming home to herself through someone else's eyes. She realized that the happiness she had been chasing her whole life wasn't hiding in someone else's approval. It was waiting patiently inside her own heart, behind all the walls she had built to protect herself from rejection. When he loved her unconditionally, she didn't just receive love, she remembered how to give it to herself. And that changed everything. She stopped looking for completion in others because she had found wholeness in herself. She stopped seeking validation because she had learned to validate her own experience. The love she had with him wasn't about two broken people fixing each other. It was about two whole people choosing to grow together. This was the happiness she had been seeking all along. As I close this story, I want you to sit with this truth. The love you've been desperately seeking your entire life was never hiding in someone else's ability to change you. It was waiting patiently in your own heart, behind every wall you built, beneath every mask you wore, through every tear you cried, believing you weren't enough. She learned what took me years to understand. Love isn't a transaction. It's not about earning points or proving your worth. It's not about becoming smaller so someone else can feel bigger, or louder so someone else might finally hear you. True love, the kind that heals, that strengthens, that sets you free, uses you in your messy morning glory, and chooses you anyway. It celebrates your weird laugh, your passionate rants, your quiet storms, and your brilliant light. But here's what changed everything for her, and what might change everything for you. She stopped asking, "How can I make them love me?" and started asking, "How can I love myself the way I deserve to be loved?" Because when you fill your own cup first, you stop desperately trying to drink from empty wells. The most profound love story isn't about finding someone who completes you. It's about finding someone who inspires you to complete yourself. Then choosing to grow together as two whole people who decided that loving each other and loving themselves was the most beautiful adventure they could embark on. Your authentic self isn't something to fix. It's something to celebrate. And the right person won't just see that, they'll remind you of it every single day.